Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is questions and answers number 23. And you guys sent me some great ones. You never disappoint. You guys are great. Before we get into it, just want to mention thanks for all the support on Patreon. If anyone would like to become a supporter of our important work here on Astral Club on Patreon, you get no ad videos in advance on Sunday, and there's an easy way for us to talk back and forth with questions and comments, suggestions, and there's a link in the description. Next up, astral projection lessons with me. If you'd like to start projecting or increase your control in the amount of your current projections, deal with fear, blockages, maybe some misunderstandings, or maybe you need some help with techniques, or perhaps making sure your subconscious is on board with the process, I'd love to hear from you. And you'll find that email also in the description, and I'll send you the necessary information if you're interested. This Q&A is pretty much based on the astral trip to ancient Egypt. If you recall, this was the video where I had just completed a mission and I needed to get away. I had a couple comrades, allies with me, but they knew nothing about the mission. It would be exposed shortly, but we needed to keep it secret for at least a few minutes. So we engaged in being chased by several of the master's allies. And in so doing, I tried to escape in a number of ways, and I eventually ended up in ancient Egypt, thousands of years ago, where I saw a painted sphinx and an extremely beautiful great pyramid that was covered in some sort of white type limestone and a beautiful golden capstone. So let's hit some of the questions that you guys threw my way based on that experience. Number one, the authentic, and that's spelled with an O. If I'm correct, you're describing the game that Robert Monroe played with his friend BB in Monroe's book, Far Journeys. What the authentic is referring to here, for anybody who has not read Far Journeys by Robert Monroe, there is a game that Monroe described that is played by advanced entities in the universe, whereby the leader leads a group of people, and their job is to have his ident so firmly fixed in their consciousness that he can shift through time, space, and dimensions, and they can still locate him and play this universal game of follow the leader. And that is precisely where I got the idea years ago. Generally, it's pretty easy because if you feel uncomfortable, but you don't want to return to your body, because I don't want to return to my body until I actually have to. So if I was confronted with a lower entity, I would simply take a page out of Monroe's Far Journeys and use that technique just to locate to another ident, time, space, you name it. And that's usually all it takes. However, the entities that were pursuing myself this time were much more advanced. So they were able, especially the leader, was able to follow me through almost all of my side visits into time and space. Number two, S8Y S8YS, as well as Abdullahi Amin, I hope I didn't butcher that too badly, and Robin all ask similar questions. Why didn't I just return to my body when I was being pursued by the Master's allies? Once I'm in my body, it would have been harder to block a telepathic scan because the physical body doesn't always cooperate in energy work. It can interfere, it can make it imperfect. So I needed to buy some time. What I did would be discovered fairly soon, but I needed to buy a number of minutes, which is why I didn't return to my body, but instead took some of those Master's allies on a little trip through time and space. Kev Changu asked, how do you travel to the past and future so effortlessly? Well, perhaps I'm making it look a little easier than it actually is. I have worked on time travel probably more than any other astral ability for 4 decades now. And even I don't always end up precisely where I wish to go. And sometimes I don't even end up in a time channel and it's a complete bust. However, even if I don't mention it, it requires an immense fixation of will and energy to travel to any of these places in time. Now, it's easier if you've already been there because, as we've discussed previously, if you have the ident of a place, it's like having an address. You can get there much more easily than you can if someone just said, "Oh, I'm in the blue house on such and such a street." If somebody gives you those kind of directions, you're going to drive around for a little bit trying to figure out where you're going. Once you have the ident, it's kind of like having an address in time and space. And now it's a lot easier to get there and get there reliably. Without an ident, it's a little bit more of a tricky process, and it's not 100% reliable. And I want to make sure everybody understands that. It's taken, you watch some people in the Olympics, and they make those sports look very easy until you try them for yourself. Now, of course, these athletes have been working at it for a long time to make it look easy. And this is one particular area of astral projection that I've spent a lot of time in practice and a lot of failures over the years, a lot of them, to get to the point where I can have a decent level of success where I'm trying to get to. Next up, number 4, Tukis number 1. Did the energy you felt radiating from the Great Pyramid feel like Loosh? Let me explain a couple things. If you recall back to the video, towards the end of the experience, I felt myself being drawn to this radiating energy that was coming from the pyramid. Loosh, of course, is something that Robert Monroe talked about, and I mentioned it in a video, which is probably one of the more popular videos, where it's a substance that appears to be collected by aliens from the planet Earth for some unknown reason. And I reported, and I witnessed it happening in one of my earlier projections. My answer is no, it didn't feel like Loosh did. The purified Loosh that was coming off the planet felt more like, I've never actually experienced this, but as lame as this sounds, I have read books by people who are heroin addicts, and to try to get as best I can what that experience must feel like. And what I can tell you is that pure Loosh probably was heroin to the nth degree. Whereas this experience I had with the pyramid was much more akin to what I have when I'm near a high power generating station. It had much more that character, drawing me in with a very powerful magnetic field. That's the best way I think I can describe that. Next up, number 5, Charisma Cruz said that she finally projected last night after a long hiatus. And she was thinking of Egypt, and then this video was published. What can I say, Charisma? Synchronicity is a thing. It does happen. Number 6, my favorite breakfast sandwich, bacon, egg, and cheese, ask, is there a way to tell when you're going to astral project before you actually do it? Sure, there's a number of, let's call them precursor signals. Now keep in mind, they don't always happen, and different people can describe them differently. However, there are certain sensations that I've experienced and that I've heard from many others. They include the feeling of vibrations happening throughout your body, almost as if a little bit of an electric field was going up and down your body. The bed feeling like it's jumping up and down. Perhaps you think there's an earthquake going on. What's happening, of course, is your bed isn't jumping up and down. I've confirmed that when I asked my wife when the last time this happened. But it's your body your physical body, trying to explain the strange stimuli that is going on rather, as your astral body is kind of going in and out of your physical body. It's trying to leave and it's getting pulled back. It's trying to leave, it's getting pulled back. So that up and down motion is interpreted in some cases by your physical brain as a bed that's moving. Not you, not your astral body, but the bed, which of course is something that would make more sense to the physical body and the physical brain. You may feel a floating sensation. Some people have reported, and in this case, I believe bacon, egg, and cheese experienced this, experienced the sensation of some sort of an entity pulling them out of their body. So these are some of the precursor signals that you might receive before you leave your body. You may also hear strange sounds or strange voices. At that point, you're probably most of the way out, though, because you're probably crossing over an EM band and you're tuning into a lot of static that takes a number of different forms. Number 7, Henrik Adamian. How do you close yourself off telepathically? There's a number of ways to do this, and I believe Henrik is referring to what I did when I was being pursued by the Master's allies in this video, because I felt a telepathic scan trying to gain information from my mind. A lot of this came from some of Monroe's books, but it also came from an interest of mine. I have varied interests. You should see my videos that are recommended by YouTube. They're all over the place. But at one point in time, I was reading books about people who were held as POWs and what they did when they were being interrogated. I even got a hold of the Irish Republican Army's handbook for its new recruits on how to resist interrogation. Together with all that information in Robert Monroe's books, what I hit upon was, when you feel that telepathic scan, Visualize and say a nursery rhyme over and over again. I've used in the past all around the mulberry bush, the one the monkey chased the weasel, that thing, or ring around the rosy. That one I like the most because it's very easy to repeat it over and over and over again while picturing the scene of children with arms joined doing this whole ring around the rosy routine. It effectively blocks the vast majority of scans because when they try to do it, their brain gets hit with this nonsense. And, believe me, it takes a certain force of will to keep this going. But it's an easy thought stopping maneuver which can prevent a telepathic scan that you don't want to happen. Just as a side note, because after all, the Astral Club isn't just an astral projection site, it's also a way where you can learn historic trivia. The Ring Around the Rosie tune was a result of experiences of the Black Plague. In the Black Plague, you did have a ring around Rosie, or because it was a sore, that's what they called it, and pockets full of posies. Posies are fragrant flowers. It would be a while sometimes before the afflicted individuals who had passed could be taken away for burial. So there would be family members, what have you, would put posies in their pockets to sort of ward off the smell. There was some information that you really probably could have done without, but there you go. Number 8, Navy Blue 3 ask, why don't you spend more time in the Akashic Records to learn wisdom, information, etc.? Many people ask the same type of questions, so I'm not picking on Navy Blue 3. Whenever I run into any sort of difficulty or I'm looking for some sort of information, trying to solve some puzzle, it's always put forth as, why don't you use the universal cheat code? Why don't you use the Deus Ex Machina that's called the Akashic Records? Well, my answer is number 1, for now, I'm banned from the Akashic Records due to the current conflict. It's kind of neutral territory right now. So anyone involved in either side stays clear. Because if you go there and you're on either side, you can get in trouble. So it's not a place where I can go now, even if I wanted to. Next up, let's see here. The Akashic Records are great for examining the past in your particular dimension, but they're a lot less useful when it comes to the future. People say, well, wait a minute, the Akashic Records has all the information. Yes, it does. It has all of the possible future information for any particular dimension. So if you want to know what's going on 100 years from now, you can find plenty of information on that. More information than I could consume in 100 human lifetimes, because they include all probabilities. Depending on which way each individual domino falls leads off to a whole different possibility. Perhaps a superintelligence could make sense of this type of information. But for me, in my limited human intellect, too much information is worse than having not enough. Not to mention, I have spent a lot of time in libraries in my lifetime. And I want to experience the universe now for myself rather than just reviewing records or experiences of others. John Payne, number 9, asks, why does your angel need help from a human? Why isn't he involved more in the conflict? Let me correct perhaps a misunderstanding here. He is quite involved in the current conflict. He's basically like a general. I don't talk about him much because it's not a good idea to talk about what he's doing very much. I'm a junior officer, a minor operative, a freshman diplomat. Perhaps I look like I'm more important than I am because you're getting my viewpoint when I talk about these types of experiences that I've had with this conflict. But, it's important to understand that millions of entities are involved in this current war. And I'm just one incarnated human helping out where and when I can. And that's really all there is to it. Number 10. A fool from nowhere said he thought I was making light of the alien influence on our planet in the past. I realize that aliens most likely did play a part in the past of this planet. Going back to ancient Sumeria, there are myths, let's call them that because that's what the scientists call them. But there are these myths, stories, legends of gods coming from the sky. They're often depicted as roughly twice the size of humans. And it is said that these gods imparted to humans, perhaps in exchange for grunt labor and what have you, information, knowledge, wisdom that started civilization. In other words, that took us from the hunter-gatherer societies to cities with advanced economies and farming and government. So I'm not discounting their alleged influence, certainly, in mankind. And there's even chances that there was genetic manipulation on behalf of the aliens as well to make humankind perhaps more suitable for whatever their purpose was. What I resent and what I was trying to get across in that video was I don't like programs like Ancient Aliens, where literally everything of note that humans have ever accomplished in this world, in history, ends up being attributed to aliens. The aliens built the pyramids. The aliens built this big wall. The aliens did this. I just want to make sure that people don't discount the potential and the ability of we humans. Remember, our ancient ancestors had the same brain capacity to solve problems that you and I have today. They didn't have computers, at least not the efficient computers that we have. Well, they did have things like the Antikythera mechanism, which opens up our eyes to some possibilities. But I just want to make sure that humans get the credit that we deserve. And I don't like when our accomplishments are just given to the aliens because it makes for an interesting program. That's the axe that I grind. I don't discount alien influence in the past of this planet. Well, that is the end of this video. Thank you for those wonderful questions. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If not, hit that bell button. That way you'll be notified whenever the Wednesday at 2 p.m. video is posted. And, of course, the typical Saturday at 8:15 in the morning video. All this, of course, is Eastern Time, U.S., is posted as well. And, of course, you got to keep those questions and comments coming because they make a great video. And I have a heck of a time making these videos as well. So once again, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.